good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. You have Alyssa Corum here, and I am joined by Ed Carson. And on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at, of course, the major indexes. It was a relatively quiet day today, and Ed, a couple of stocks underneath the surface with some pretty interesting action.
Yes, that's right, Ali. We're going to take a look at Tesla, which had a really big move on news today, and Qorvo and Visa, a couple of quality stocks that are setting up nicely.
Perfect. But first, we begin with a chart of the Nasdaq Composite closing down just 0.2% for the day after spending a little bit of time in positive territory during the middle of the session, while the S&P 500 and Dow closed down with losses of about 0.5% each. So all in all, a little bit of a quieter start to the week when you compare it to last week.
Yeah, I mean, the last few weeks have been a little bit volatile. This one's fine. I mean, we're basically at record highs. Nasdaq is the laggard in the last several days, and it looks just fine. Trying to get to that 12,000 area, and but basically all the major indexes are looking pretty strong.
All right, and we'll just take a quick check on the S&P 500 hitting new high ground this week. So that is very good to see. And underneath the surface, let's check in on Tesla. A lot of eyes on this stock today with the announcement that it is joining the S&P 500, managed to gain some 8% today. But Ed, that is well off of its intraday highs. So what do you make of the action?
I mean, obviously, if you bought it, in previous days, you bought it before, you're happy. You got an 8% gain, so that's fine. I mean, obviously, you want to see it as high as possible. It got news. It's joining the S&P 500. That'll happen on December 21st, and that kind of news often you get a pop off in one day or over a few days. So it got up to 462, which was pretty close to the official buy point, but that happened pretty early on, and it's like we often say you want to wait a few minutes. Now, this one did beat its 5-minute high, but only for like 10 seconds. I was looking at it, but then it rolled over. It wasn't, look, it's a nice gain. Don't make anything, but it's just that this is why we sometimes say wait to buy or wait to sell. Wait for a few minutes to see how things shake out. And, so it pulled back a little way. So if it could get above that intraday high, get above 466, which is the real official handle buy point, going back to the daily, that would seem like a decent spot. I mean, to be entering. The thing is, you don't want to be in a situation like this where you bought it at 460 and you're down, say, quite a bit, down 5% on a day when the stock is up 8%. I mean, it's just like that you don't want to be in that kind of situation.
Exactly. This is where those intraday charts can come in handy. This is a 5-minute chart, as Ed mentioned. And when we talk about these big moves like this, we typically talk about them in relation to earnings reports when you see those big gap ups, but it isn't just limited to that. So utilizing these intraday charts can really come in handy. It's not a fail safe, but it definitely puts those odds in your favor. So now let's move on to another stock, taking a look at Qorvo, QRVO, in the chip space, a 5G play here. What do you like about this chart?
Well, it's been, sort of consolidating nicely here in a, after sort of retaking that buy point. I mean, I guess 140.79 might be the buy point. It's a little messy. So that's okay. I mean, because the old buy point sort of failed. It's consolidating nicely on a weekly chart. It's actually working on a 3 weeks tight. It isn't there yet, but either way, if it gets above the high of this little consolidation, you might use that as an add-on place or maybe even new buy. As you said, it's a 5G chip maker. It makes chips for the Apple iPhone. The 5G iPhone is coming out. 5G is spreading out. So it's in a growth area. We're seeing those kind of 5G Apple chip makers do well. Qualcomm, the foundry Taiwan Semi doing better than some of the data center chip makers like NVIDIA and AMD.
Yeah, and this one was a little tricky if you did buy out of this consolidation, intraday that week, it did come all the way 8% down, closed below the 10-week line, although it was only a close of 1.4% below that level. We typically say, a decisive break 2% or more below the 10-week, but this probably shook out a lot of shareholders, but then the week following had a really big week. So really nice to see that tight action from here, Ed. I agree. And last but not least, we want to talk about Visa, ticker V here. had a gap up as a lot of those real economy stocks perked back up with the vaccine news. So what buy points are you looking at here?
I mean, you could use still the buy point of 217.45 off the left-hand side, which is sort of shown there. You could, it technically just got slightly above on November 9th when all those stocks gapped up. And so if it's a few cents more, either way, we're just talking about a tiny amount from the intraday high there. You could even buy it now because it is just 5% above its 10-week line. And, or, it's essentially which is the weekly equivalent of the 50-day. And so you could buy it now, especially since we sort of think of this as a long-term leader. It's not on there, but that's partly because we didn't want to overwhelm the list, because MasterCard is on that list as well. But you can see, on this monthly chart, just really good outperformance pretty much since it came out, with, and these are the kind of real economy stocks that you want to see, because like airlines, they weren't necessarily doing great before, and they're cyclical and they're other things. You want to see stocks, real economy stocks that really are real economy growth stocks. And when the economy comes back and travel comes back and cross-border payments come back, all of a sudden, the growth could be, quite strong in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and that is, even though estimates were, it looks like recently revised lower, they do point to stronger bottom line growth ahead as we do see that recovery come into effect. So really nice to see some buy points here, because we are asked, okay, with this maybe shift a little bit into the real economy stocks or value plays, how do I play that? So it sounds like something like a Visa might be compelling from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing you want to look for stocks, I think, that had probably decent growth prospects before. I mean, in a sense, because of, because those are probably the stocks when the economy goes back to normal, will be doing fine going forward.
All right, everyone. Well, that is it for today. And you can be sure the conversation will continue tomorrow morning on IBD Live. That's our daily morning live stream, of course, where our experts are sharing their screens, talking about actionable stocks and setups, portfolio management strategies, market conditions, and how to handle that, and more. And, some music thrown in there, some birthday shout outs, you never know. And some good jokes from Ed thrown in there as well.
And a few others.
And a few others. So we hope you join us over at investors.com/IBD Live. We'll see you there, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.